On today's show, a film focusing on a Detroit automaker takes top spot at the box office. The governor is going to Israel. The suburb of Warren is now giving elected officials taxpayer-funded health care for life. Lyon Township is looking to curb its fast growth, and Sven is in Belarus this week. We chatted before he left. That and more is on deck for your Daily Detroit. It's Monday, November 18th, 2019. I'm Jer Stays. Let's get into episode 379 of the podcast right after we thank our newest Patreon member, James. You're awesome. Join him at patreon.com/dailydetroit. A film about a real-life automotive rivalry won the box office wars this weekend, pulling in $31 million in North America, an additional $21.4 million overseas, and that'll add for a global total of $52.4 million. Christian Bale and Matt Damon star in Ford vs. Ferrari, about the real-life battle between Ferrari and Ford, which resulted in the first American win of Le Mans in 1966. Although the film took some creative liberties, at the heart of it is a story where Ford, led by Henry Ford II, looks to reinvent itself with sports cars. In order to do that and help snap Ford out of their doldrums, Ford tried to buy Ferrari in 1962. It almost happened, but the deal died at the last minute over a dispute about the racing team. Enzo Ferrari then sent a message to Detroit's Ford.
What did he say?
He said Ford makes ugly little cars in ugly factories. And he called you fat, sir.
We're gonna bury Ferrari at Le Mans.
That didn't go over well. And the rest, as they say, is history. I haven't seen the film yet, but multiple places say to see it with the best sound possible. As a podcaster, I can appreciate that. Governor Gretchen Whitmer is in Israel as we record this show on a business attraction trip with stops in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Bethlehem. According to her press schedule, she'll be part of the Water Technology and Environmental Control Conference, visit GM's Advanced Technical Center, Ford Motor Company, the William Davidson Archaeological Park, and the Perez Center for Peace and Innovation. In Bethlehem, the governor will visit the Church of the Nativity and meet with a representative of the Palestinian Authority. This is Governor Whitmer's first international trip in office. There are many economic ties between Israel and Michigan, and this trip is at the invitation of the Israeli government and hosted by the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit. New gas price data is out this morning from AAA of Michigan. Gas is down 8 cents across the state compared to a week ago. But in Metro Detroit, they're down just 4 cents, 6 cents above the state average. Gas costs about $2.50 a gallon in our region, slightly down from last week and last year. The Detroit area has the second most expensive gas, behind Ann Arbor. The cheapest in Michigan, Traverse City, at $2.33 a gallon. Taxpayers are now on the hook for free health care for life for current and former elected officials in the city of Warren, reports the Macomb Daily. And here's the kicker, says the paper. There were no cost estimates or public plan provided for how it'd be funded. The unanimous vote happened during a lame duck session of the city council. Elected officials would need to serve 8 years to get the benefit in Michigan's third largest city. In contrast, regular employees currently get lifetime benefits after 25 years of service in Warren. Now that there's a little sunlight, some are distancing themselves from the deal. Mayor Jim Fout said he would have probably vetoed it, and another councilman says he regrets his yes vote. I'll put a link to the full story in the show notes, which if you care about the story, you should check it out. It's an interesting one. Norb Franz goes into how it happened, and it's a great piece of hyperlocal watchdog reporting. In Sterling Heights, the United Auto Workers said over the weekend that General Dynamics Land Systems Corporation ratified a new 4-year agreement with 58% of workers voting in favor of the contract. General Dynamics is the 5th largest defense contractor in the country and makes tanks and other light armored vehicles. One of the underreported themes in Metro Detroit is the tension between suburban and rural life. Up in Lyon Township, Hometown Life is reporting that the Oakland County exurb is considering purchasing property rights to slow development in the fast-growing community of about 20,000 people. Lyon Township is about 50 minutes up I-96 from downtown Detroit and has almost doubled in population in the last 2 decades. The idea is to use a conservation easement so that developers would be slowed or have to deal with the township to acquire certain land. Retiring farmers and the like could sell their land and stay on it, for instance, putting the land in township control while getting some monetary value out of the property. A big hurdle to this idea would be the high cost of the township. Property up there is jumping in value. I'd note here that our fastest growing areas are often our farthest away from the city, stretching our infrastructure farther and farther apart. I also think it's important to note that as a whole, the region is not adding population. This is shifting of people, not actually growth. We shouldn't be surprised if more situations like this pop up as there's a tension between rural and suburban life. CNN has named a Dearborn woman, Naja Bazi, as a top 10 hero for charitable work. She's the CEO and founder of Zaman International, a non-government organization that serves women and children living in poverty. There's a 40,000 square foot plus facility in Inkster that provides education, job training, and basic necessities to more than 250,000 people. Bazi is in the running for CNN Hero of the Year. You have until December 3rd to vote, and I will put a link in the show notes. In Detroit, a massive plan by Mayor Mike Duggan to raise $250 million through a bond is expected to be put on the ballot later today, despite some city council members making vocal objections. This is on the heels of a $500 million demo program funded in part by the federal government, a program that the city's Auditor General recently reported as mismanaged. City Council is meeting at 5 p.m. Monday, where they will be taking public comment. The proposal would be on the ballot for a public vote during the March 10th primary election. If you live in the city of Detroit, registration is now open for a program to get half off your parking tickets. In order to qualify, you have to sign up ahead of time, and the vehicle must be registered in the city of Detroit. So if you get a ticket, you need to pay it within 5 days of the violation, and you get a 50% discount. So it's a way to save $20 plus on your average ticket. A subtext to this program that people are not talking about. Many people who live in the city do not register their vehicles here, and that's to avoid very high car insurance rates. So think of this as kind of a little sweetener to try to get more people to do that. Here's a neat project from Detroit's Northwest Goldberg neighborhood. It's called the 6326 Rest and Ride Park. It's at the corner of Linwood and Ferry Park, just south of Grand Boulevard, and it serves the 29 Linwood bus. It's currently empty and would be transformed with a $12,500 crowdfunding campaign to have covered bus shelters, rubber mulch pathways, sculptures, artwork, benches, and of course, plants and flowers. The project is by Northwest Goldberg Cares. They've been in the community for a quarter century. The funds raised on Patronicity, a crowdfunding site, would be matched by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation if they hit their goal. There are some neat benefits depending on your level of donation, including pieces by Rebel Nell. I have a couple of pairs of Rebel Nell cufflinks. They're pretty awesome. I'll drop a link to the campaign in the show notes, or you can search for 6326 on patronicity.com. Sven, what are you doing going to the other side of the earth? Why are you leaving me this weekend? I'm feeling hurt.
So I am hopping on a plane tomorrow that is going to take me to Minsk, Belarus, by way of, I think, Frankfurt is my layover first. But I am traveling at the invitation of the Press Club Belarus, which has worked with the U.S. Embassy there in Minsk, the capital city, to host me for a week.
You're not going to mince any words?
I won't mince words.
That was terrible. Sorry, everyone.
You can't help yourself with the puns, man.
No, I never can.
But anyway, this all goes back to earlier this year when the Press Club Belarus sent a delegation of young journalists to Detroit. Remember that, Jer? And we hosted them for they booked an appointment. What was the organization they were working with here in Detroit?
Global Ties Detroit.
Yeah. So they came through and they were meeting with media outlets around town, and they met with us. We told them about our podcast. I don't know, hosted them for about an hour or so one day. They apparently liked us enough because I was talking to one of the guys who's kind of, has a high-ranking role in the organization there. He asked me if I'd be interested in a trip. He said he thinks they might be able to work with the U.S. Embassy over there and, get my airfare and lodging and everything taken care of. And we've been, working the back channels ever since then, and it's about to happen. And yeah, I can't believe it.
So what are you looking forward to most around this? I mean, it's a big move.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I was originally attracted to this. I mean, he asked me if I'd be interested in coming, and I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah!" Like, I mean, quite frankly, when am I ever going to go to Belarus outside of this? Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't ever go there, but like, it's not. It has
It's
never
not
been
necessarily something in like the travel destination books yet.
No, it's really not. And it's interesting you say that because like so I have a Europe guidebook from the Rough Guide, and it's from 1998, which is when I last visited Europe, long time ago, right? And it doesn't even list anything for Belarus. And 1998 was not too long. A little history here is in order. Belarus is a former Soviet. It was part of the Soviet Union up until the collapse in the early 90s, right? It's been kind of plodding along ever since then. I did a lot of research on the CIA website actually into the country, and it's kind of interesting. The country is still heavily indebted to the Soviet Union, to Russia for its economic survival. It gets, heavily subsidized energy, oil, all those things. And, mind you, let's kind of set the table here. Belarus is located right between Poland to the west, Russia to the east, and it's just north of Ukraine. In fact, it's not too far away from where the Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened.
Which is a very hot part of the world right now.
Yeah. So that's the other thing about this is given the current geopolitics going on in the world, I'll be honest, like it's a little daunting going here right now. I mean, there's all the stuff going on with Ukraine. Obviously, Russia. There's a lot of shady things going on in that country, and also just between Russia and the United States.
Yeah, there's a lot of animosity on one level, and then cooperation on others.
Yeah, Belarus is also, it's run by an authoritarian leader who's basically been in power ever since the fall of the Soviet Union since more or less ever since Belarus became sort of a, quote unquote free and independent nation. So there's a lot of, this is like a sort of a fraught trip in some ways, but I think it's going to be really interesting too. Belarus was apparently mostly destroyed during World War II, and it was rebuilt under Lenin. So it's considered like this sort of like exemplar of Soviet architecture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting. I've done a little bit of kind of looking into like, what's the food going to be like? Like, what am I going to be eating over there? And it appears to be, the cuisine appears to be kind of equally more or less influenced by Polish and Russian food. So you've got everything from like borscht to pierogies, both of which I like. I'm here for it, It's going to be really fascinating. I think it's going to be a really interesting trip. I'm going alone, which I did when I went to Europe the first time, but that was way different. I was visiting in totally friendly countries. It's like, it's like driving from Ohio to Michigan, when you're, I flew into London and bought a Eurail pass and traveled through like, to Amsterdam and Copenhagen and up into Sweden and so forth. It's a different deal.
So why do you think that an intrepid podcaster is going?
Well, they wanted me to come and talk to the press club about what they call running a quote post-industrial city podcast, which I love that, and I still think we need to run with that in our
Should that be our tagline if you're
marketing
listening?
collateral.
Post-industrial city podcast.
It works for me. I like it, but and I've kind of asked them that. I'm like, wow, why did you guys, like, of all the people, why did you pick little old us? We're a small team, but I guess we punch above our weight, and I think because of all the things I talked about, the geopolitics, and they're still heavily indebted to Russia, and they're living under, this kind of strongman rule. They've dealt with kind of an ebb and flow in terms of the amount of freedom of the press that they enjoy. I mean, I found an article from a few years back that the Press Club Belarus for a time had to operate in Poland. They basically couldn't, hold meetings in their own country. They had to move to Poland for some time. I'm told that right now they're enjoying like a relatively, good period of free access of information, free flow of information. But, I'm really curious to see, like, when I access the internet there, like, am I going to find certain sites blocked? I mean, I don't know. I don't know these things yet. I'm it's going to be a learning experience.
Well, maybe when you come back, we'll get you a I'm big in Belarus t-shirt.
Oh, I can't wait. I hope I get some, I'm definitely aiming to get some good photos in front of some of the Soviet hammer and sickle emblems that are apparently all over the city. And good like t-shirt in Belarusian would be pretty cool too.
Well, I got to say, I am just tickled that this is happening for you. And I'm glad that
it's so random, right? I mean, I love it. What an opportunity, and, thanks in advance to the Press Club Belarus for making it happen. But yeah, I'm excited.
Well, as one of my mentors says, if you're pedaling in the right direction, you might not always go where you think you're going, but you're going to end up where you need to be.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, I think that, you learn as you go throughout your careers that putting yourself in positions where you might not feel entirely comfortable is like, that's the way you grow, and you develop and you learn new things and you take huge leaps in sort of your development and as a human being.
Before I let you go, some previews of what's ahead this week. How does the new Mustang Mach-E stack up? Autoblog editor Greg Migliore is scheduled to come on to talk about it. Also, we're circling back to auto insurance. Turns out that promised savings from a deal in Lansing earlier this year might not be such a savings after all. In fact, we are finding that in some cases, people are actually paying more. And there's a new transit plan coming down the road. Cheyenne will be in Royal Oak later today. A quick reminder that membership matters, and it is an important part of keeping your Daily Detroit going. Independent, all-local media requires independent funding. Be like James and join us as a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit, and thank you. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.